5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello. Hello, audience. This is George Demery again with another episode of Your Money Matters. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about the things that you got to do. We've explored so many topics as it relates to your money and things that you need to do to help you in your financial literacy. It is very, very important to us, is important to our church that our members are more financially literate. That one of the things they don't do in school, yet they teach writing, arithmetic, English, so many other subjects, social studies, history. They don't really teach students on how to handle their money and how to think about their money. So that's what we try to do here at Money Matters. Again, we look for ways of making you think differently about your money and some of the subjects that you got to do. How you position yourself to be more financially stable and in a position to retire one day. It's everything that we do as it relates to your money and how you handle your money. It's related to almost everything you do in your life. So we want you, to the best of your ability, to understand what you need to do in order for you to be financially, again, stable, to be in a position that if by chance something happens that is catastrophic, as the pandemic was and still is for a number of us, that you can survive those kinds of things. So what is it, what other, some of the other things that we try to do? We want you to get your credit number up to 700. We talk about this. We spend a couple of minutes on this every week on the importance of having a good credit number. That, remember, every time, if you don't have cash, and the great majority of us don't have enough cash to drop down to buy a car or to buy a big ticket item, that means you need to purchase cash. So we look for ways, and we can help you. Call me. We look for ways in helping you to get that number to 700 and above. Remember, a payment with an interest rate of 10% and a payment of an interest rate at 3% is two entirely different numbers. I remember one day I had a person who worked for me at the radio station, and she had bought a car, and she had bought a used import. I'm not even going to tell you the name of the car. And 14, 15 years old, bought it at a 15 to 16% interest rate. 6 months later, the car breaks down. Well, she owed more money on the car than the car was worth. So here at Money Matters, we want to make sure that you are not in that position. But let me tell you where it all starts. It all starts on how you think. We talk about critical thinking often when it comes to this program. How do you think about your money? I've had a number of people who call me and has asked for my help. And I'll tell them, and you've heard me say this in other programs, if you are not willing to change, you are wasting my time and you're wasting yours. If you keep doing the same things over and over and over again, you're not going to get different results. So what do? What does success look like as it relates to most anything, but especially your money? Earl Nightingale, I've quoted him many, many times. Earl Nightingale says success is achieving a predetermined goal. If you set goals and you achieve goals, you're a success. If you set goals where you want to save money, you want to make sure that you pay off credit cards, if you set those goals, and achieve those goals, then you're successful. Success is having a dream realized. Dream big. Set those goals. Know what it takes. What do you want in life? Well, you have to create goals. Well, how do you do those? I've had a number of people also in my career at the radio station that say, well, George, how do we set goals? What do you do? Well, I believe in what they call, and if you look this up, you'll always see it. And remember, the great majority of the things that I shared, Money Matters, you can find out for yourself. A lot of it is through experience, but a lot is through as much research as you can do. And there's one thing I know. You can find out anything that you want to find out these days, and you can find out pretty quickly if you just look at it and you look for it. But I believe in SMART goals, and I use SMART as an acronym. Well, what are SMART goals? And if I'm sharing with you that you need to set a goal to pay off your credit cards, to get your credit rating up to 700, to put you in a position where you can buy a house, well, how do you set them? Well, first of all, the S in SMART goals is you must be specific. You must have a narrow target on your goal. Your goal can't be so broad. You've got to say, this is what I want to achieve. I am going to pay off my credit cards this year. I am sick and tired of paying rent and building wealth for the person that I'm paying rent to my landlord, and I'm ready to start building wealth for myself. I am going to put my children in a position where they don't have to borrow so much money when they go to college. We're talking about specific goals that you know that you can do. So S in SMART goals is specific. M is measurable. If it can't be managed, I've shared this with many managers who've worked for me over the years. If it can't be measured, it can't be managed. If it can't be measured, if you can't put a number on it, it is very difficult for it to be managed. Have a specific number that I'm going to get these 3 credit cards paid off. I'm going to knock out $5,000 on my other loans or other debts that I have. Make it very measurable. And many times when you make it measurable, I call it setting mini goals. That, all right, I'm gonna pay off $500 this month, and in 3 months I'm going to pay off another $300-400. So it gives yourself something to build on. Make them measurable. Number 3, the A in SMART goals is achievable/attainable. Don't set a goal that you know you can't achieve. Now, don't set a goal that's not a stretch. I didn't say don't stretch. Always set a goal. Always, Benjamin Mays, who was Martin Luther King's mentor, and I love his things. Even Martin Luther King had a number of mentors. He says, it's okay not reaching a star, but it's not okay not having a star to reach. So set lofty goals, set goals that stretch you, but goals that you know that you can attain and that are achievable. If you're $10,000 in credit card debt, don't set the goal that this year in 6 months you're going to pay off all 10. Say that you're going to pay off 2 or 3. Make it attainable, leading to the overall goal. R, make it relevant. Make your goal relevant to what you want to do long term. What's it look like? If you do pay off that credit card, what does that do when it's time for you to go buy a car? Man, right now buying cars is really tough. On one side of the coin, or homes for that matter, on one side of the coin, interest rates are at the lowest level they have been in my lifetime. And I don't think they're going to ever be any lower than they are now. But because of the fact that interest rates are so low, I'm telling you, the price on automobiles is as high as I've ever seen them on used or new cars. They're not negotiating, and it's tough. Same thing about homes. Sometimes it's timing that's important. So, but again, make them relevant for what you got going on. And finally, the T, and I've said this a ton of times, every goal has got to have a timeline. A goal without a timeline is only a dream. And dreams are just dreams. But you need to have a time. You need to tell yourself, I am going to get this done by August 31st. I am not going to be in debt by the time we get to Christmas this year. And I'm going to put myself in a position, I'm going to be better this year than I was last year. I'm going to put myself in a position where I don't need to use credit cards for Christmas. You have no idea how many people will put all that Christmas on a credit card, $1,000 on a credit card, for an example, considering that the average interest rate on most credit cards is around 15, 16% if you got good credit, by the way. If you only pay minimum payment on that credit card, take 18 months to pay it off. So if you borrow $1,000 and you borrowed at Christmas, and you only pay minimum payment because you got other things you need to pay, well, when you get to the following Christmas, you still owe money on that credit card. And that's how credit card debt accumulates. That's why you've got to stop it. So let's get back to what we were talking about, success in critical thinking. You become what you think about. That also comes from Earl Nightingale. I read that a number of years ago, and that's profound. And when I think about all the trouble that's going on with our children, and the murder rate that's going on, and not only in our city, but in cities around the country, it's because how people think. You become what you think about. It's incredible. Remember, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he said, a man becomes what he thinks about all day. Marcus Aurelius, who was one of the Roman Empire's great emperors back in the day, he said, a man's life is what he thinks of it. William James, philosopher, and he offered the first psychology course in America. He said the greatest discovery in his life is that a man can change his life by altering his thoughts. What you wish for, you can obtain. Hear me. Hear me. There is nothing that you cannot obtain if you're willing to put your mind to it and not allow someone around your life to talk you out of it. Norman Vincent Peale, the author of the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, said the greatest discovery is that if you think negative thoughts, guess what happens? You get negative results. If you think positive thoughts, you get positive results. What we do has a lot to do with how we think. If you believe you can't get out of debt, you won't. I was talking to a few people. I had some guys in here last week from Park Community Credit Union. And Raymond Smith is now a president of one of the divisions. And a number of months ago, I said, well, they now have interest rates where you can get a house now, and they would finance it at like $500 and $550, which is unheard of. And as long as your debt to income ratio was in line, you could borrow money to buy a house. So I said, Raymond, what is it? Why is it that people still decide they want to rent when they can purchase a house, when the rent within a couple of $100 a month is the same cost as having a mortgage that you pay? And this is what he said. He said, because they don't believe they can own a house. It's how you think. Get out of this hamster wheel. I hate that. There's a difference between activity and productivity. When you remember, you see that hamster in that wheel, and he's active, but he ain't going nowhere. Get out of that hamster wheel. We can help you. We want to give you encouragement on how you think. If you want it, you can. You can get out of this thing. Reverend Cosby, in one of his recent sermons, he says the most important conversation that a person can have is the conversation they have with themselves. What are you telling yourself? One day I was talking, and I'll find myself talking to myself. I'm playing golf, and a friend of mine said, who are you talking to? And I said, well, I was just looking for some intelligent conversation. So the most important conversation is what you believe about yourself. It's what you believe. An example. Last week, my daughter finished residency from 4 years of undergrad, a year of grad school, from Vanderbilt to Meharry Medical School, HBCU, that she loved, by the way. As a matter of fact, her experience at Vanderbilt, which is a great university, and her experience at Meharry were completely different. But the people at Meharry, those instructors and those students, they had it all together. They wanted to make sure that they all made it. Just a little sidebar on that. She went there, and then she just finished residency at the University of Texas last week. And when she picked me up at the airport, she looks at me and she says, Dad, I'm the best surgeon in the whole group. Just as a matter of fact. Well, she believed that she was the best surgeon in the whole group. Well, she ended up winning an award as the best surgeon in the whole group. The point that I'm making is, if you don't believe it, nobody else can. If you don't believe you can be the best at what you're trying to do, you will not achieve it. Muhammad Ali, and if you're from Louisville, Kentucky, you're probably a Muhammad Ali fan. In my man cave, I got my Muhammad Ali pictures everywhere around the room. This is what he said. He said he called himself the greatest before he became the greatest. So he realized he set the picture. He can see himself. See yourself being successful. Don't see yourself being broke. Look for ways that you can earn money, and there are many. We've talked about it in weeks past, that you can make money and you can get out of that hamster wheel. Look for ways of doing it. Mark 9:23 says, all things, not some things, all things are possible for one who believes. The King James Version says this, Jesus said unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. It doesn't make any difference at all for me to give people principles on what to do about their money if they won't live by those principles. I can share with you ideas all day long. And let me tell you something else I discovered, because I'm always doing research about money. Wish I was this smart about money 20 years ago, and I don't mind saying it out loud. I would be a multi-millionaire if I was this smart about money 20 years ago. remember this, so many things. It's never too early to save. It's never too early to save. Always say what you do today will dictate what tomorrow looks like. When you're in a sales environment, and in my career, I grew up in a sales environment, and now, my daughter's a doctor, my two sons are in sales environments, and they've been hearing this from their father their whole life. And I've shared with them the energy that you put into sales today, the people that you're willing to go see today, the number of time that you're willing to put in today, you will be today will be a reflection of what tomorrow looks like. So what you sow will dictate what that paycheck looks like a month or 2 months down the road. And if that paycheck a month, 2 months down the road is real slim in a sales environment, it has much to do with what you did 2-3 months prior. Believe, and if you believe, you can succeed. Believe and you can succeed. There's a few reasons why people, and poor is a relative term, because there are folks, trust me, audience, who make tons of money who are daggone broke because they break one of the number one rules when it comes to being financially literate. And that's that. Let me tell you what they do. They make more than they earn. Look how simple that is. They make more than they earn. That's the reason that in December 19, before the pandemic, more than 75% of people in America did not have $5,000 saved. And it didn't mean if you made $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year, the great majority of people spent more money than they earned. Doesn't make sense. If you make 50, spend 45. If you make 100, live like you're making 75. You can never, ever. That's the reason so many pro athletes, I said this maybe a month or two ago, not so much today as it was maybe 4 or 5, 10 years ago, because I'm thinking athletes are more financial literate than they used to be. That don't have a whole bunch of people sucking up your money because one day, because pro athletes, they only stay on the basketball court or football field so long. Now, let me conclude today by sharing this. I got so much I wanted to give you today, but only have a half an hour to do it. Formula for getting rich. I also got this from Earl Nightingale. Again, man, I love Earl Nightingale's stuff. He's been around. He's a guy in the late 50s and 60s. Some of the things he talks about are a little lofty on occasion, because we all know that Black America had challenges that white America didn't have, and that's just a fact. Believe it or not, if you're not a part of Black America, but we just have had challenges from redlining to not being able to get loans, that every time we put 1 foot forward, we got pushed back. A lot of people didn't. I had a guy a few weeks ago that said, I never knew that happened at Tulsa. Well, guess what? A lot of black people didn't either, because it wasn't in any of our history books. But I digress. Well, let's talk about a formula for getting rich. Our rewards in life, most of the time, now Earl Nightingale said all of the time, I'm just going to say most of the time, will be in exact proportion of your contribution and service. Wow. That the money you make will be in direct proportion / ratio to the need for what you do, your ability to do it well, and the difficulty of replacing you. Now, what job are you doing? The money that you make will be in direct proportion / ratio to the need for what you do. How much is it needed? How well you do it. Martin Luther King said, if you're going to sweep the street, be the very best street sweeper you can be. And the difficulty it is to replace you. When you are really good, if you're an electrician, who don't need an electrician every now and then? And you're really good at what you do, then you are hard to replace because everybody needs an electrician. In your business, in your company that you work for, do not be the person that says, it ain't in my job description. That makes you easier to replace. Trust me on that one. Let me give you another one. Earl also, he calls this the gold mine. He talks about creating ideas, that every great achievement started with imagination. You know, just started with imagination. That think about what may be needed 10 years from now. What could that possibly be? Could you imagine if you understood where Apple was going to be in the early 90s? How much money that would have made you. He also said this about time. There's only one thing, and it's a little relative as well, but there's only one thing God gave everybody an equal amount of. I don't care if you're black, white, what your religious background, male, female, where you live. He gave everybody the same amount of time. So let me give you this. If you woke up an hour earlier every day, let's suppose you woke up at 7, but you're going to wake up at 6. Or let's suppose you usually wake up at 6, you're going to wake up at 5. Do you realize that on a 5-week, if you did that 5 days a week, during the course of a year, you would get an extra 6.5 40-hour weeks. Think about that statistic. If you did it 7 days a week, if you got up an hour early 7 days a week, it would give you more than 9 more weeks over the course of the year. 9 weeks? What? Over 2 months of time just because you got up early. He says, take some time, and I'm going to conclude with this. Take some time every day to give it thought. Let it be a part of your prayer time where you think of 5 ideas a day. I'm going to write down 5 ideas a day. Now you can sit there while you watch it and say, well, George, how the heck do you do that? There's nothing easy about being successful. It's not. Nick Saban said either suffer the pain of discipline or you will suffer the pain of disappointment. It requires discipline to do it. But if you do that, you will create over 1,300 ideas, and guess what? One of them just might make you money. Well, that's our show today. I tried to pack a lot into 30 minutes. I hope it's been beneficial. My producer over here, Angela Lucia, wants to know if I'm going to continue to do this during the summer months, and maybe, rather than do reruns. So thank you again. We really appreciate you watching. And as always, to all of our members and friends, thank you. God loves you, and so do we. Have a great day.